In March 1973, the SNP felt confident enough to take on Labour in their safe seat of Dundee East.
Dundee Harbour has become a base for North Sea oil rig supply ships. Most candidates believe Scotland should get a share of the profits.
Their growing profile raised the possibility that one day they might even achieve independence and wrest control of the oil from London. It was a future scenario which attracted the attention of some powerful vested interests.
The fuel question became one of great importance to the United States because it needed to safeguard its non-Middle Eastern reserves in ways that it had never had to do before. And the North Sea oil obviously came on just at the right moment for them.
In 1974, the US State Department appointed one of its most distinguished diplomats to Edinburgh as consul, Richard Funkhauser.
He was very literate, very handsome man. He looked like sort of James Stewart. And of course he was an oil professional.
But the arrival of the senior diplomat and what exactly he was there for caused some confusion.
And the American Consul General was negotiating. I never knew the detail of it, but negotiating in some way, I think, with the Scottish nationalists.
There were rumours that he might have been with the CIA, which of course is the natural view of people in those days when governments were being brought down by that organisation throughout the world.
Whatever Funkhauser's brief, he listened to all sides. During an earlier visit to Whitehall in 1973, he had a meeting with a high-ranking Foreign Office official who warned him that the Scottish nationalists were a very serious threat. But the man from Washington was not swayed by Whitehall's hard line. He adopted the pragmatic approach that one day the nationalists may well be in control of the oil.
Ons program seo hasin je nog geef maar of siarad den cahare MI5 and Special Branch gan clachgig le Westminster hadden de blionigin ges maile churid agus crani anver immers nationdag na Hallabe. Lo officer in MI5 and Special Branch ri brahaiger in SNP agus er nation die hille.
Vechten polissen en dreten son as hoeveel ille figalappen fijn oorstaan van realtors vi lever med rutschebi wat de fenchen tvimihol het nationdag.
Ha een paperse, ik issue me gunniv, dus een SNP, ga je gamalik eldersly aan een glasgoed, aan mijn kutje tijd het eigen schach, ga je gamelarson kan waar baas William Wallace gehoorig. Agus chrokal nieuwavestjach met een gunnivicher, maar hij is ik issue als een Nirex gapanicher zo'n paper neach na calgaleid ga skrivig. Ga skrivig leis a follis, leis Special Branch a follis Metropolitan is seo an Albulning. Sa sinna gís gain fiús fachan trifichiet blione door nach roach as an SNP ach buin buk ummelchuisen groot foglú are na nutrissen is seo an Albulning.
Behorging seo bech as rood. Behorging soerig om al de goede. Kan het zo ja sentier.
Yn rwy'n polis gynnydion, y dorst brosnach o gan nasiant eich oge gys bomich yn y spreg, agos y dorst stws spreg ffwyd yn gaif.
Gydrach agad caset na nwy yn orsens gybygat na gyntig, agos droch anya metol fer gansneis fer y wy'n gan baliad.
Am smyn gro na polisman fech polis et dal yn nwy There
were those in the civil service who took a rather different view of this from what they would normally do of political issues, because they felt that they had to work for the maintenance of the integrity of the United Kingdom.
Willie McRae was an extraordinary man. In 1980, at the Mulwarcher inquiry, McRae played the key role in defeating plans by the UK Atomic Energy Authority to dump nuclear waste beneath the hills of Ayrshire.
Ladies and gentlemen, what did we learn from this inquiry? First, I hope that all of you learned, if you hadn't known ever before, that all of you learned that you don't trust the political establishment in Scotland or in Britain. And that's lesson number one.
Before he died, he reckoned that he'd found something. He was involved, or going to be involved in an inquiry into the nuclear industry appertaining to Scotland. And he said that he'd now got something that they wouldn't be able to wriggle out of.
At the same time, McRae expressed deep concern over the death of Hilda Murrell, who was murdered in mysterious circumstances some months earlier. She too had been preparing a case against nuclear expansion, in her case at Sizewell.
She was challenging a very ruthless nuclear industry and that it was possibly associated in some way.
It has since been claimed her death came during a bungled break-in at her Shrewsbury home by the security services.
Maybe security did have a file on Hilda Murrell, but you said in your press release they didn't even know the woman. That's not true, sir. I'm sorry.
The surveillance was not conducted by MI5, and it was not conducted by the CEGB or the Atomic Energy Authority. It was conducted entirely by freelance operators like Lanny Peachman, who shot himself 3 days after Hilda died, and the unspeakable Vic Morris, who was a criminal, a convicted criminal, can still operate as a freelance agent. People like that, operating out of control, are capable of anything.
Before McRae died, his holiday home in Kintail was broken into. The same thing had happened at Murrell's holiday home in Wales, shortly before she was murdered.
I don't think anything that mattered at all was taken. Willie did mention it to me because, again, he was quite gleeful over it. His words to me were, they didn't get what they were looking for.
We were driving round the corner on the bend of the road that we're standing beside today on our way to Skye, and we were hailed by somebody who turned out to be an Australian tourist who indicated that there was a car off the road and felt there was somebody in the car who was dying. And we left our own vehicle and proceeded down the side of the hill.
What did you find?
We found a maroon Volvo facing back up towards the road, which had an SNP symbol on the front left-hand corner of the windscreen, and to my amazement it was Willie McRae, somebody who I'd known personally for many years.
A few weeks later, McRae's death certificate was lodged at Register House. It contained surprising news. According to the official report, McRae had died of a gunshot wound to his head. The scenario painted by the authorities was simple. McRae was known to carry an unlicensed .22 revolver. That night, he drove while drunk and crashed. In a fit of remorse, he turned his gun on himself.
I should say the establishment in the country was an enemy of Willie McRae.
But there were other aspects of his work which would have made him unpopular in some quarters. He represented the Scottish National Party in 4 general elections and rose to become its vice-chairman.
He knew he had been under surveillance, but he just didn't care.